I recently bought the 76435 Hogwarts Castle, the Great Hall, from LEGO, and I wanted to see how it measures up against my Great Hall of Hogwarts MOC in scale and detail, and take a look at what details from the books are implemented in this set. And I have to say, there are a lot of details I didn't expect, and that surprised me in a positive way. So let's dive right in. The building process is divided mainly into 3 sections. First the basement of the building, then the courtyard and the Great Hall on top of it, and finally some rooms that are inserted into the basement. In total I needed about 6 hours to build this set. In comparison, my Great Hall MOC required over 100 hours of building time alone. The first segment of this set is the basement, with the cliffs on the outside where the Hogwarts castle stands on top of. There are 3 spaces left, where 2 rooms and 1 corridor are inserted later. At the top, some tiles and jumper plates were added. This is where the courtyard and the Great Hall are placed onto later on. The next step is the small courtyard in front of the Great Hall, with the entrance door to the Great Hall and a small clock tower on top. This part then can be put onto one side of the basement part. Then comes the main part of the set. The Great Hall, with its tables, a small path around the hall, its many windows, the roof with 3 small towers on top, and finally some interior decorations with the food, the banners of the 4 houses, and the flying candles. Like the courtyard, it is then put onto the basement structure. Only after finishing the set did I realize that I had placed the upper tower incorrectly. Fortunately, it was an easy fix. In the next step, a small corridor is built and inserted in the middle of the basement structure. The same follows with the bathroom, where the troll attacks Hermione. And finally, the Hufflepuff common room is built and inserted into the basement structure in the same way. After this step, the set is finally finished. What do you say? Do you like it? I, for one, really had fun building it. But now, let's go more into the details of this set. This set measures approximately 40 cm long, 14 cm wide, and 40 cm high. In comparison, my Great Hall MOC is significantly larger, at 77 cm long, 40 cm wide, and 100 cm tall. While the LEGO set consists of 1732 parts and weighs 1.8 kilograms, my MOC uses roughly 40,000 pieces and weighs a total of 22 kilograms. This isn't a small LEGO set, but it looks tiny in comparison to my MOC. The first room I want to show you in more detail is the bathroom. What I noticed when rereading the scene in the book is that the room's placement in this set, near the Hufflepuff common room, is quite fitting. Harry and Ron initially followed the Hufflepuffs towards their common room before turning into a deserted side corridor leading to the girls' bathroom.
Ducking down, they joined the Hufflepuffs going the other way, slipped down a deserted side corridor and hurried off toward the girls' bathroom.
I also like the design of the sinks, and the demolished one fits the scene perfectly, as the troll was knocking them off the wall, and Harry even picked up a tap from the floor that belonged to one of the broken sinks. The toilet, on the other hand, looks very plain, compared to those in other LEGO sets. There's only one toilet cubicle in this bathroom, though it would be difficult to fit more, given the limited space. One thing that irritated me was the play feature highlighted on the box, which shows the troll destroying the cubicle. I expected a hinge mechanism or something similar, but it was simply built to be unstable, and that's it. Another fun fact, the toilet cubicle was only destroyed in the Harry Potter movie. In the book, however, the troll only damaged the sinks on the walls. One thing that seems strange to me is that the bathroom is built with hinges that allow the room to swing open. I can't see any practical use for this feature, and it actually makes it harder to play with. Since there is no locking mechanism, it constantly swings open unless it is integrated into the rest of the castle. Do you have any idea what the purpose of those hinges might be? Inserted into the rest of the castle is the bathroom with blade modifieds with door rails attached to the bathroom and brick modifieds with channel that are integrated into the castle, so that I can slide the room into the castle. That's the same technique I used to insert the blades for my sky into my own Great Hall. Just like the bathroom, the adjacent corridor features a fold-out mechanism. Here too, I find myself questioning its purpose. I honestly can't make sense of it. At the end of the corridor, a small staircase leads up to a foldable rock, which serves as an exit to the outside. I think this little secret passage is quite a nice touch. As is typical for Hogwarts, the hallway is lined with portraits of various people. But there's one disappointing thing. The portraits, there are 14 different ones, seem to be randomly distributed across the Lego sets. In my case, I ended up getting the Sleeping Witch portrait 3 times. Twice in the corridor and once in the Hufflepuff common room. I really wish they had made sure you always get a variety of different portraits. Between these portraits are arches, though I'm not sure what they are supposed to represent, especially since there are already vaulted arches right above them. It would actually make more sense to have doors here leading to the adjacent rooms. However, no such passage is intended. So the corridor isn't truly open to the other rooms, yet it isn't properly separated either. It all feels a bit half-baked. It would have been such a great opportunity to integrate the entrance to the Hufflepuff common room, for example. It consists of several barrels, and you have to tap the correct rhythm on them to gain access. While the common room is never described in the Harry Potter books, there is a detailed description of it on harrypotter.com. It mentions a sloping, earthy passage, which is captured here by the medium nougat color of the floor, which looks a bit earth-like. The room itself is described as cozy and round with a low ceiling. Naturally, it's difficult to integrate a round room into a set like this, but I think it feels cozy nonetheless. The low ceilings, however, aren't really visible. The room feels quite open at the top. The common room is supposed to be decorated in bee-like yellow and black, which is only reflected here in the carpet, and even that is mostly covered by the table. In my opinion, these colors should have been emphasized more. The tables are described as highly polished and honey-colored, which doesn't quite fit the set, as the table here is a bit too dark. Adjacent to the room are round doors leading to the boys' and girls' dormitories, which are nicely represented by these slopes. harrypotter.com also mentions that many colorful plants and flowers decorate the common room. You can see these in this set as well, though only in green colors. At the far end of the room there is a fireplace with a portrait hanging above it, just as described on the website. This portrait should depict Helga Hufflepuff with her golden cup. Unfortunately, in this set it's just a random sleeping witch, even though a piece featuring Helga Hufflepuff actually exists. Go figure. But all in all, I really like this room because it radiates a sense of coziness. Despite a few inaccuracies here and there, you can tell they try to stick mostly to the description from the harrypotter.com article. As described in the book, Hogwarts stands on a high mountain here as well. But there's one little detail that bothers me. Are those supposed to be trees? On the other side of the set, a staircase leads upwards outside. This leads to a boathouse, which can be purchased as a separate set and attached there. This set has the number 67426. The fact that you can reach the boathouse via an outside staircase is a detail that only appears in the films. In the book, however, the harbor for the boats that the first years arrive in after crossing the lake is located in an underground cavern beneath the castle. The stairs lead up to a courtyard in front of the Great Hall, which also only appears in the films and is not mentioned in the books. However, the resemblance to the film is captured very well, even if it is not quite as long and looks a bit compressed. I particularly like the clock and the small turrets, which look very similar to the film version of Hogwarts. A door then leads across the courtyard into the Great Hall. 2 rows of tables are set up here. Actually, there should be 4 rows of tables, 1 for each house, as I built in my own Great Hall. But of course, there is not enough space for that in a set like this. The tables are very simply built here, and in my opinion, the colors of the table legs do not really match. I also find the benches very disappointing here. They are only hinted at with plates on the floor. I think a bit more would have been possible. As described in the films and also in the books, the teacher's table is at the far end of the hall. The goblets on the tables are in silver and gold in this set, although actually all goblets should be golden. The same goes for the plates, which are light bluish grey here. However, I couldn't find any matching ones in pearl gold for my MOC either. At the far end of the hall, a door should actually lead to a chamber known from the scene where the school champions gather after the Goblet of Fire has chosen them. This was left out here. In my MOC, I included a door for this, and I will add the chamber at some point in the future. For the windows, many small ones were simply put together, making a large one out of them, especially at the far end of the hall. You can't do much wrong here, as there is no exact description of the windows in the book. The only description you can find is that Harry and Ron watched the sorting ceremony from the outside through the windows, when they arrived at Hogwarts in their second year. This will be a bit difficult in this set, as the windows are a bit too high for that. In my MOC, I want to design the terrain around the Great Hall so that the figures can easily peer through the windows from the outside. I decided on high windows in the colors of the Hogwarts houses for my Great Hall. The banners of the 4 houses, Gryffindor, Hufflepuff, Slytherin and Ravenclaw, hang between the windows. I also hung these between the windows in my Great Hall, but I built them myself using the letters of the respective houses. However, they were not described in the books. Above the banners, you can see the floating candles, which are attached here to trans-clear plate modifieds to make them look like they are flying. In my MOC, I used the same candles, but I hung them there from transparent strings. The candles are also a striking feature of the Great Hall. The book describes it with the following phrase:
It was lit by thousands and thousands of candles that were floating in mid-air.
Even though there are only 4 candles here in this set and not thousands, I think they still look great and you can easily recognize this prominent feature of the Great Hall. I think it's nice how the sky on the ceiling of the Great Hall is hinted at in this Lego set, with the dark blue plates and the 2 clouds and the moon, because this is a striking feature and a special characteristic of the Great Hall, where you feel as if you are sitting directly under the open sky. In my MOC, I represented this with 3 large plates that I slid into the ceiling and on which I attached a lot of tiles for the clouds. The roof of the Great Hall was built with dark bluish-grey plates. I particularly like all the dormers we created here, which I also built for my MOC, although of course a bit larger. I also like the small canopy, which stands out a bit from the rest of the building. On top of the roof is a larger tower and several smaller towers. On the side below the roof, you can see a lot of small turrets that were recreated there. I like the idea of this, as Hogwarts was described with many turrets and towers. For my Great Hall, I simply built chimneys here, which form the connection to the fireplaces inside the Great Hall. One thing that I don't understand is why the Philosopher's Stone is hidden up there in the biggest tower. Does this make any sense to you? I actually quite like this Lego set. It pays attention to details not found in the movies alone, like the complete Hufflepuff common room and its proximity to the girls' bathroom. All the other touches, the secret passage, the enchanted ceiling in the Great Hall, the floating candles, and the broken sink in the girls' bathroom are great, despite a few flaws like the portrait in the Hufflepuff common room, the Philosopher's Stone in the attic, or the toilet and the tree, which are hard to recognize for what they are. But now, after showing you the building in this set, I'd like to take a look at the included minifigures. First we have the Golden Trio, consisting of Harry Potter, Ron Weasley and Hermione Granger. These are pretty standard figures. This version of Harry appears in 2 other sets, while Ron and Hermione can each be found in 4 other LEGO sets. Their appearance matches the descriptions in the books. Harry with his messy black hair and scar, Hermione with her bushy brown hair, and Ron with his red hair and freckles. Another student included in this set is Leanne. Since neither her appearance nor her Hogwarts house is mentioned in the books, they based her on the movies, where she has dark hair and is sorted into Hufflepuff. She is a close friend of Katie Bell, and it is unknown why the film portrayed her as a Hufflepuff, especially since several points in the books suggest she could be a Gryffindor, which is why some fans prefer to see her there. However, given the ambiguity, I think it's perfectly fine to depict her as a Hufflepuff here. Representing Ravenclaw, Harry Boot is included in this set. He was in the same year as Harry and was also a member of Dumbledore's army. But other than that, not much is known about him or his appearance. The next minifigure is a Slytherin, Daphne Greengrass. The only time this character is ever mentioned is when she is called up for her practical charms exam during the OWLs at the same time as Hermione. Consequently, nothing is known about her appearance either. Next up is the Fat Friar. He is the Hufflepuff house ghost. He was short, fat, and wore his hair in a tonsure, which unfortunately wasn't captured on this minifigure. Other than that, he is described as a joyful ghost. Also included in this set is the arithmancy teacher, Professor Vector. She is rarely mentioned and her appearance is never described in the books. Her look here was taken from the movie version of Professor Vector. Much better known than Professor Vector is Professor Quirrell, with his turban and Voldemort's face protruding from the back of his head under this turban. I think this figure matches quite well. The minifigure of Albus Dumbledore is depicted here in a richly decorated red robe. This fits his description as he frequently wears different colors, sometimes purple and sometimes red. His long white hair and beard also matches the book descriptions, as well as his half-moon glasses. Finally, we have the Mountain Troll. It is described as being 12 feet tall, with granite grey skin and a small head. It is also said to have short legs as thick as tree trunks and flat, horny feet. I think its size, small head and thick legs fit the figure very well. Only the bluish color is unfortunately incorrect, as it should actually be grey. It drags its wooden club along the ground when walking, because its arms are so long. This would also work here if its arms were extended. So, apart from the color, the figure actually aligns quite well with the book description. I was pleasantly surprised to see that this set includes several minifigures that are very obscure and sometimes rarely mentioned even in the books. Additionally, every single minifigure except for Harry, Ron and Hermione is exclusive to this set. Alongside the Hufflepuff Common Room, which isn't known from the movies or books, I was really thrilled by these figures and am glad that attention was paid to such details that aren't obvious from the movies alone.